So today we're going to be multiplying and dividing fractions. It turns out multiplying fractions is pretty easy. Take a look at these three examples we've got here. I've got 3/5 times 1/8. Alright, so to multiply fractions, you don't have to do anything super confusing. You don't need a common denominator. All you have to do is multiply the tops of the two fractions. 3 times 1 is 3. And then multiply the bottom of the two fractions. 5 times 8 is 40. And our answer is 3/40. Pretty simple, right? Now, there is one thing you need to watch out for though. Before you multiply it, check to make sure that you can't reduce either of the fractions. Notice 3/5, I cannot reduce that. 1/8, I can't reduce that. I also can't reduce my final answer, 3/40. So that's how I know my answer is not only correct, but it's also in simplest form. But I'll give you another example that actually you can simplify it. Alright, so take a look here. 6/9 times 2/7. Now, I could just multiply the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom and get an answer, but then I'll have to reduce kind of a big set of numbers in my fraction. The faster way to do this is reduce your fraction before you multiply it. Alright, so right here you got 6/9. I know 3 goes into both 6 and 9. So I can reduce this fraction here. 3 goes into 6 2 times, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. So that fraction reduces to 2/3. And 2/7 I can't reduce. So now I can multiply much smaller numbers. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 7 is 21. And notice my answer here, 4 over 21, cannot be reduced because there's no number that divides into both 4 and 21 other than 1. So I know I've got my final simplest answer. All right, let's do one more. 4/5 times 15 over 22. Now, notice I can't reduce 4/5 because there's no number that goes into both 4 and 5. I can't reduce 15 over 22 because there's no number that goes into 15 and 22, other than 1, of course. But one more thing you have to check when you're multiplying is check to see if you can reduce the fractions diagonally. Here's what I mean. Notice on the bottom of this fraction you've got a 5, and the top of this fraction I have a 15. I can reduce diagonally here because I know there's a number that goes into both 5 and 15. 5 goes into both of them. And as long as we reduce one number on the bottom and one on the top, we're allowed to do this before we multiply. All right? 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 15 3 times. All right? Now similarly, check out diagonally this way, 4 and 22. We can reduce this way too because there is a number that goes into both 4 and 22. 2 goes into both of them. 2 goes into 4 2 times, and 2 goes into 22 11 times. So now that I've kind of simplified this problem, now when I multiply it, I'll be dealing with much smaller numbers. 2 times 3 is 6, over 1 times 11 is 11. And notice, I can't simplify that, so that's my answer. All right? Now notice, if I hadn't have reduced it before I multiplied it, if I had just done 4 times 15, I'd have 60. And if I had multiplied the bottom, 5 times 22, I would have had 110. Now notice, this is the exact same value as the other fraction I have. I just would have had to reduce this. And you can kind of see that 10 goes in the top and bottom, so you can kind of see that this would simplify to just 6/11. But a lot of times, these numbers are so big that it's really hard to reduce them. So that's why I always recommend reducing it before you multiply when the numbers are smaller. Because when you get these big giant numbers, sometimes it's hard to find the number that reduces the fraction. All right? So those are the multiplying examples. Let's do the dividing examples now. All right, so to divide fractions, there's a little trick. All right? So what we have to do is, when you have a division problem, you keep the first fraction the same, 2/7, and we multiply, instead of divide, we multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, meaning this fraction flipped over. All right, so whenever you have a division problem with fractions, you keep the first fraction the same, and you multiply it by the reciprocal of the second fraction. In other words, you flip the other one upside down. All right, so now it just becomes a multiplication problem. 2 times 3 is 6. 7 times 1 is 7. And by the way, notice neither of these can be reduced, and diagonally they can't be reduced. And my final answer, 6/7, that can't be reduced. That's my answer. So 2/7 divided by 1/3 is 6/7. All right, here we'll do another one. Again, we have a division problem, so I keep the first fraction the same. But instead of dividing, I multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So instead of 6/5, 5/6. Okay? Now, before I multiply this, I actually can reduce this. Check it out. I can't reduce 4/9, I can't reduce 5/6, but check out diagonally, 4 and 6. There is a number that goes into both 4 and 6, 2. 2 goes into both. So 2 goes into 4 2 times, and 2 goes into 6 3 times. All right? And I can't reduce the other way diagonally, so this is as much as I can reduce before I multiply. But now I have smaller numbers, so it's easier to do. 2 times 5 is 10 for the top. 9 times 3 is 27 for the bottom. And notice, 10/27, I can't reduce that. There's my final answer. All right, we'll do one more. 8/15 divided by 12/25. All right, again, it's a division problem, so I keep the first fraction the same, and I multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. In other words, flip it upside down. Now, these are big numbers, so I definitely want to check to see if I can reduce these. 8/15 I can't reduce. 25/12 I can't reduce. But check it out diagonally. 15 and 25. 5 goes into both 15 and 25. 5 goes into here 3 times. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So that helps a little bit. It makes the fractions a little bit smaller. But check out diagonally the other way, 8 and 12. There is a number that goes into both 8 and 12. 4 goes into both of them. 4 goes into 8 twice. 4 goes into 12 3 times. All right, so those two fractions with those really big numbers all of a sudden reduce down to 2/3 times 5/3, which is actually pretty easy. 2 times 5 is 10 over 3 times 3 is 9. 10/9, and I can't reduce that. I'm done. All right, so the key to multiplying fractions, reduce them beforehand, and then just multiply the top times the top to get the top, and the bottom times the bottom to get the bottom. The key to dividing, keep the first fraction the same, and multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. In other words, multiply by the second fraction flipped upside down. And then it's just a multiplication problem, which we just got through talking about. Simplify and multiply. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit that like button. Also subscribe because it really helps us out. But with that being said, good luck on your math, and I will see you next time.